And I would say good morning here on Birds 365, but then I'd be just lying to most of you diehard Birds fans, right? We'll get through it. The long, cold, and that's both literally and figuratively, off season has begun. Final score 32-9. Tampa Bay Buccaneers over the Philadelphia Eagles. And to be truthful with you, it wasn't really that close. That was domination. That was ugly. That was not a way to end the season. We got a lot to talk about here on Birds 365. It's usually Mac and Mac. Johnny Mac on his way back from Tampa. If he gets on the plane, if I were Johnny Mac, I wouldn't get on the plane because it's too cold to be back up here. Stay down there in Tampa, Johnny Mac. No, we need you back here tomorrow. Bill Colarulo, Mr. Power Hour, here with me for 2 hours of Eagles destruction. That's what it's going to be after last night's game, Bill. I'm trying to find the silver lining in last night's game, and there just isn't one to be found. The thing that jumps up at me more than anything else is the brutal tackling that the Eagles had. Eagles did about 476 things poorly last night, but nothing was worse than the Eagles tackling, and it is one of the most important things in football. It's something we probably don't talk about enough. Had you seen such a poor display of Eagle tackling in a long time?
I haven't. And I tried to remember the last time there was an Eagles defensive performance that bad, an Eagles defense that looked this bad. And I think you have to go all the way back to when Andy Reid experimented with his offensive line coach as the defensive coordinator in Juan Castillo for us to look back and say that we had a defense this bad. And look, tackling is effort. Tackling is hard. And you come out in a playoff game where the message all week was it's a new season. We're going to respond now. Now it's our chance to play. We've been coasting for the last few games, but this is our season now, the playoffs. And they come out and they perform like that on defense, and they tackle like that on defense. It looked like a team that gave up. And then you go over to the other side of the ball, Jody. I cannot believe that Nick Sirianni and Brian Johnson put on that type of display. I'm not absolving the players. We could talk about Jalen Hurts in a second, but I was actually making jokes all week about you have a quarterback with a dislocated finger. You're out your number one wide receiver, A.J. Brown. You ran for 200 yards in week 3, and I was making jokes saying, oh, well, the Eagles will throw the ball 40 times. They come out in the first half. They ran the ball 5 times, and they threw it 21. Wait, was it? It was 26 plays. Yeah, 21 pass plays, 5 running plays. They open up the game with 2 really good runs. And then on third down, let's come out in an empty set and not even make them think we're running the football. I just couldn't believe that that was the game plan last night. I couldn't believe that once again they had no answers for the blitz. Joe, I can't believe we're sitting here talking about, and we're going to get into it, if Nick Sirianni is the coach of the Eagles next year. I mean, what a change. It was a little over 300 days ago that we were a half away from winning a damn Super Bowl, Jody. Feels like it was an eternity ago.
Yeah, an eternity. Exactly right. And, oh, by the way, if people want to get mad because I'm going to harp on something that I usually harp on, I texted Bill Colarulo last night in the first quarter of the game, and I said, oh, okay, your defense can't get out of its own way these days. They just can't play for 92 different reasons. They're having trouble defensively. So let's win the coin toss and put our defense out there first. Yeah, that's a smart way to do it. You just ran down the numbers of the run-pass ratio in the first 26 plays of the game. Maybe it had something to do with the fact that they immediately let the Bucs go down the field and score a touchdown. Then when they can't do anything offensively after the 2 successful running plays and 3 not good enough pass plays, let's let the Tampa offense go right back down the field and stick in the end zone again. They're down 10-0. Before you can blink, they're down 10-0. And I think that surely affected the play calling. If they had confidence, if they believed in themselves, they would have stuck to the run. They didn't, so shame on them for that. But part of it is conditions of the game. And they were down 10-0. Why? Because their defense stinks. So let's get our defense out there first and foremost. Let's show it. The absolute just devotion to analytics, because analytics says you must defer if you win the coin toss is crap. It's just total crap. And I had a call on my CBS Sports radio show this weekend. Some analytics nerd going, "You're wrong, Jody. I have to disagree with you. You must do what the analytics says." No, you don't. No, you don't. You have to take circumstance and situation into consideration. And with the Eagles defense being as bad as it's been, you have to try and alter your line of thinking and your game plan. And Sirianni didn't do it last night. I don't know whether he's going to get fired. I said last week here on Birds 365, if they lose, which, oh, by the way, they lost convincingly, which adds to it to the Buccaneers, I think it's a 50-50 split. I think it's a coin toss. I think there's just as good a chance Nick Sirianni is fired in the next 24 to 48 hours as it is that he stays.
Even if they would have lost, like you said, it was how they lost. It's how this team collapsed down the stretch. And I can't believe it. I got to admit when I am wrong. The one thing I loved about Nick Sirianni going into this season is, the great culture this guy built. You know, how much this team looks together and can battle adversity. And even Jalen Hurts, we talked about how great of a leader Jalen Hurts is. I don't see any of that from either one of these guys. It looks like Sirianni's completely lost the team. It looks like Jalen Hurts has checked out from the quarterback position. I mean, you look at him on the sidelines, and what we used to think was so great, how stoic this guy was, it looks like he's disinterested. Looks like he's not talking to his players. He's not getting his teammates getting riled up. I don't know what happened to this team, but I'm just waiting for all those articles. Maybe the Inquirer's going to hit us with some more stuff. Something's going on with this team. It's more than just the fact that they lack personnel on defense. It's more than just the fact that they've played a few bad games. There is something seriously wrong with this team, and I think we're going to start to find out over the next few days.
Yeah, I got a tough time getting on Jalen's case for his sideline demeanor. He's the exact same as he was last year. When he was runner-up MVP, nobody goes, "Oh, he shows no emotion on the side. And what is he doing?" No, of course nobody said anything because they're very good, because they were going to the Super Bowl. So now this year we look and go, "Oh, my God, he doesn't show any emotion on the side. That's not good." If he's the same, he's the same. So we're judging the result, not the behavior. And I think we should stay
but you know what,
the
Jody,
same on that.
For me, I talked about how I used to think this team could really battle adversity. You know, Jalen can battle adversity. Sirianni, such a strong culture, they can battle adversity. But now when we go back and we look over the last 3 years, when have they faced adversity, Jody? The first year, they had no expectations. So they start the year 2-5. It's a new starting quarterback with Hurts. It's a brand new rookie coach in Nick Sirianni. Really not much adversity because no one expected anything from them. And then last year, they just steamroll through everybody. No adversity, go all the way to the Super Bowl. This year, the first time they face some adversity, the San Francisco 49ers come in here, punch them in the mouth, dominate them, and this team crumbled. After that game, we haven't seen any life from this team. So, look, Sirianni doesn't call the plays from the way it looks, although there was that article yesterday that maybe he is calling the plays, but Sirianni's not necessarily calling the plays. He's not a defensive coach. So what does he do? He is a CEO type coach. And when you see a team completely check out like this, that's got to be on Sirianni. I mean, this is his job to keep a team together, to keep a team wanting to play. I just can't remember a team that has declined this fast, this quickly, and not only in wins and losses, because sometimes wins and losses can be deceiving. We were deceived the first 11 games when they went 10-1. Mm-hmm. But it's not just the fact that they went 1-6 down the stretch. It's how they did it. It looks like a team that has zero faith in their coaching staff, zero faith in one another. And that's why I can't imagine, and I can't believe I'm even saying this, because 2 weeks ago I would have said this was crazy, but I can't imagine you run it back with Nick Sirianni after what we just witnessed over the last few weeks.
Well, if they run it back, it's good, and Sirianni stays, it's going to be with a whole new coaching staff. I can guarantee you that. There's going to be massive changes to the staff. Could Sirianni save his job? Possibly, yes. But there will be massive changes. But your point about culture is right on, Bill. That's what comes to the forefront when you face adversity. And you're right about the first year adversity. Well, they did face adversity when they were 2-5. And the coach said, maybe I just need to hand off the play calling and I'll go to the CEO coach position. And it worked for him. So you can't just dismiss that. But last year, there was no adversity whatsoever until a questionable call on a James Bradbury pass interference in the Super Bowl, and they couldn't get over that one. And then this year, with the adversity they faced over this last month and a half of the season, you're absolutely right. That's where team character is supposed to. That's where culture is supposed to come through. And they showed a complete and utter lack of it for the last month and a half. This was bad. This was ugly. And here's the other thing that I think we need to keep in mind, and it will keep us busy here on Birds 365 all off season. This was a complete and utter team loss. Other than a few, and when I say few, I mean few individual players, Devontae Smith, yeah, I'm looking at you. They all came up small. Offense, defense, certainly coaching, and sorry to say there, Mr. Front Office, Howie Roseman, this roster wasn't good enough. It should be better than losing 6 of 7. No one's going to argue that. But when you step back and take a look at the big picture, the Cunninghams of the world, the Morrows of the world, the Robies of the world, the Byards who we gave up draft picks for the world, they came in and didn't perform. They didn't play. This was not a roster that you could say should go to the Super Bowl. We were banking too much on guys who were here the year before and had big years, and you knew there was a chance there'd be a little regressions to the mean. They couldn't afford the regression to the mean. So this was a complete across-the-board team loss, which means we're going to have a long off season here in town, Bill, because they got a lot of changes. Howie's not going anywhere, so I'm not suggesting Howie Roseman should be fired, but Howie Roseman can't be doing any victory laps this offseason because he didn't give them a good enough roster as well.
Especially when you look at the defense, and you're talking about some of the defensive players. Howie Roseman, that defense is on him. Sean Desai didn't do a great job. Matt Patricia did a horrendous job. But at the end of the day, you look at the roster on the defensive side of the football, you have to blame Howie Roseman for ignoring the linebacker position, trying to piecemeal those important positions with guys that nobody else wanted. We talked about this before. They bring in Nick Morrow, who the Chicago Bears were more than happy to say, sure, take him. We'll take TJ Edwards. We'll upgrade our linebacker that you had last year. Take Nick Morrow. Pittsburgh Steelers, they had Terrell Edmonds at safety who started for them for 5 seasons. Mike Tomlin said, sure, take him on a cheap 1-year deal. We don't want him. Turned out he didn't even last in Philadelphia. Then they had to make the move. Before they even made the move for Kevin Byard, they brought in Justin Evans, who's been on IR his entire career. Where was he last night? On IR. They had to bring in Zach Cunningham in the middle of training camp because they ignored the linebacker position. And you could go up and down that defensive roster trying to piecemeal different players in different positions. And not only because of the decisions Howie Roseman made this offseason, but if you go back over the last few years and you look at the defensive draft picks that Howie Roseman has made, and I'm not including the rookie class. Maybe these guys will grow into really good players. It's too early to know. But when you have Super Bowl aspirations, you can't rely on that many rookies. What we needed was our 2nd year, 3rd year, 4th year defensive players that you drafted who are still on their rookie contracts so you can afford them under your salary cap, contributing. And there is nobody outside of the defensive tackle position with Milton Williams and maybe Jordan Davis if you think he's a player. There is no one on the defensive side of the football that Howie Roseman drafted that's still on their cheap 4-year rookie deal contributing. None of them. And that is the problem.
And Jalen Carter, I know you know Jalen Carter, but Carter,
yeah, I'm not including this year's rookie class.
Yeah. You said no rookie.
Yeah, I don't think if you have Super Bowl aspirations, you can't go into a season with Super Bowl aspirations and say, okay, we're going to get Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Keely Ringo, Sidney Brown, Eli Ricks, and have all of these guys carry your defense. Sure, it's great when you can get rookies to contribute a little bit, and Jalen Carter was a great rookie this year, but look what happens. They hit the rookie wall. If you're going to try to go to a Super Bowl, you need those 2nd, 3rd, and 4th year players contributing, and everyone on that defense, with the exception of Reed Blankenship, who was undrafted.
That's where I was going. Give me your read on Reed Blankenship, Because last night he was not in the lineup, and I think too many people underestimated that all week. Maybe it was just wishful thinking that he was going to be good enough to play. He didn't practice all weekend, and shockingly, of course, he didn't play. Shouldn't have been shockingly. We should have known it. They just didn't make that official. Nick clung to his competitive advantage there. He decided to tell the world that A.J. Brown wasn't playing 2 days in advance, but for some reason, they kept Reed Blankenship cards close to the vest. He's like a key guy to the Eagles defense. And he had a good year. He had a very good start to the year. And he kind of dropped off as the year went along. Is he like the man of the back seven? We're talking about the back seven. I got issues with Slay. I got issues with Bradbury. I got major issues with Devontae Maddox. I know he's always hurt and he comes back and he works hard to get back. But then he gets back and he's not good. He wasn't good for any of the 3 games since he's returned. They have to address the entire back seven. Does that include Reed Blankenship?
Yeah, it's a tough question because you mentioned Avonte Maddox always hurt. My concern is I'm hoping Reed Blankenship isn't a guy that's always hurt. We've seen him get dinged up here and there the last 2 seasons, but it's hard to say. I still think we need a bigger sample size. If he's next to a stud safety, maybe you bring him back. But the problem is you had Reed Blankenship back there with Kevin Byard, who clearly has lost a step, maybe 2. You have James Bradbury getting toasted on the outside. So it's hard to sometimes judge your safety when everybody else in the secondary isn't playing that well. So I think you have to bring back Reed Blankenship next year because you look at this thing. I was looking this morning, Jody, at how many free agents this team has now and how many questions they're going to have going into the season. I mean, I can't see them moving on from Reed Blankenship when you need a safety next to him. You need to figure out what you're doing at the linebacker position, really both linebackers. Do we want to go through the whole offseason on the Nakobe Dean train again, saying Nakobe Dean's going to carry this defense? I mean, that's what people were saying all offseason, that a guy who played 34 career snaps was going to be the savior in the middle of that defense. And look how that worked out. So they need to figure out their linebackers, their other safety. Got to figure something out with James Bradbury. You can't cut the guy. The dead cap hit is way too high to cut Bradbury. But, yeah, I don't know how I feel about Blankenship, but clearly the experiment with Avonte Maddox at safety didn't really work out last night.
And the very interesting part of it is Howie Roseman doesn't like to spend at safety or at linebacker. He spent at corners, and neither one came close to living up to the paycheck they got in a capped world. That can be deadly, and it was for the Eagles this year. But he's going to be forced to. He has to. He doesn't have a choice other than to upgrade linebacker and safety. And much like Nakobe Dean, now he's in a better place than Nakobe Dean is, because you noted Nakobe got 30-some-odd snaps for his entire rookie year. Sidney Brown played a heck of a lot more in his rookie year than Nakobe Dean did, but he was really hit or miss too. He made some really good plays, a 95-yard touchdown return, which was basically like catching a punt. It wasn't that great a play. The quarterback threw it right to him. He made a great run with it down the sideline, took it to the house. But Sidney Brown missed a whole bunch of tackles this year too, and was out of position a lot this year. To defend him a little bit, they played him out of position. They're playing him at slot corner. Why do you do that? Oh, because it's a mirror position. Baloney, it's a mirror position. So I don't even know what Sidney Brown is. He's part of what you have to bank on going into the future, and I don't know how confident I am in that. How about you?
You know, that's why when I'm talking about how you can't rely on all rookies, you expect Sidney Brown to make mistakes. He's a 3rd-round draft pick. You expect Keely Ringo to make mistakes. He was taken in the 4th round. These guys need to grow. And my concern is both sides of the football, not only these younger guys on defense, but you look at the offense. Is this coaching staff good enough to coach these guys up? You look at offense, every single player on the offensive side of the football, every single one, regressed this season. That's coaching. You look at the defensive side of the football. They lost not only Jonathan Gannon, but a lot of people were upset when they lost their secondary coach, Denard Wilson. Look what happened to the secondary. So are these coaches good enough to not only coach up these veteran guys, but more importantly, the Sidney Browns, Keely Ringos, Eli Ricks? Are they good enough to get these guys where we need them to be because, man, I just keep going back to, I cannot believe that we almost won the Super Bowl less than a year ago. And the realization is now setting in that how far away are we from being a contender again? When that clock struck zero last year at Super Bowl 57, as upset as I was, I kept thinking to myself, okay, they have a great roster, great franchise quarterback, good young head coach. We're going to get back. We're going to get back. And now you sit here with the realization that the season is over and all of these question marks. When are they getting back, Jody? That's what's making me the most upset right now.
We'll find out the first steps in that very long journey over the next couple of days. And I hadn't thought about Denard Wilson in a couple of days either. Man, I wish I was fly on the wall when the conversation was going down between Sirianni and Wilson. When he decided not to make him the defensive coordinator, again, judging by some very good reporters and what they've been able to uncover, it sounded like Denard Wilson, although very disappointed, was willing to stay and be their defensive back coach. And Nick said, yeah, I just don't think that will work.
Another great decision by Nick.
Walking papers. Yeah, that's one of the problems with the one thing you can say about Nick Sirianni that's not good is his ability to evaluate other coaches. I think is pretty poor. As per Johnny Mack, the Eagles absolutely wanted to hire Jonathan Gannon. They hired Gannon before they hired Sirianni. So he doesn't get credit for Gannon, even though he knew Gannon and certainly gave it a thumbs up when he found out he's going to be his defense coordinator. It wasn't like he chose him. Shane Steichen is the one guy that he's hired where you go, damn, that was a smart move. I could go into the litany of guys thereafter that they've hired that haven't gotten the job done. And the Eagles gave him that latitude to have a big say in what the coaching staff was going to be. And Nick Sirianni failed that test pretty significantly. All right, he's Bill Colarulo. He's in for John McMullen today. I'm Jody McDonald. Coming up next is our usual day after game guy. Early on, we talked to Jeff Kerr from CBSSports.com. We'll do that today, even though it's going to be the last after game Jeff Kerr appearance. Oh, we're going to have him on plenty during the offseason. I can guarantee you that. But it's not going to be an after game Jeff Kerr appearance for the next 8 months. Think about that. 8 months before our next regular season Eagle game. A long, cold, tough winter is before us. Jeff Kerr will try and heat things up for us next here on Birds 365.